Hey there, traders. Here we go. It's what about 11:30? Getting up towards 11:30 on the 27th of March. That's the world we live in. That I have to start basically give you time and date because things are changing so rapidly. It can be out of date just almost as soon as you finish the recording. That's the world we live in. Okay, whether you love it or loathe it, it's Trump's world, and we're all living in it. All right, one way or t'other. Anyway, what I thought I'd do is that as I kind of title this, in a week of WOWO, Trump's now finding himself waging a war on two fronts, which is never a smart move. You can read the history books to find out how well that's worked for other people in the past. But as I was kind of explaining to people who clients or just wanting insight on this, we have moved from RoRo, from risk on, risk off to WOWO, which is basically war on, war off. That's the way we've been flipping, really. You might say for the last week or so. A lot of that driven by Trump's comments. Okay, a lot of that driven by the other sides, the Iranians' comments. Remember, if you understand your history and understand your military history, the other side always get a say. All right, they always get to have a word. All right, in the proceedings and stuff, and it's a foolish man who fails to take that into account. So anyway, I thought what I'd do is just a very, very quick update for clients, friends, etc., just to sort of give a little bit of insight into what's going on and what I see and why I think he's kind of waging a war on two fronts. So, little bit of context, okay? Dollar index, okay. I don't trade the dollar index, okay, but I do utilize it to give me insight into the sort of relative strength or weakness of the dollar, okay, giving us also an insight into the kind of risk on, risk off sort of mentality of the markets, but also war on, war off. Right, what we have seen since the start of this war, which what this weekend is going to be a month, is it? A month since we've been up to tricks, up to the shenanigans. What we have seen is invariably is that the dollar has been really the risk off play. Okay, whenever there has been worries or concerns about the sort of the state of play, then invariably what we've seen is a kind of a bump in the dollar. And that has been one thing that has been consistent, all right, over the last month or so. So, big round number, 100. Okay, why am I interested in it? These are just kind of very simple futures charts, all right. So, this one's on a 4 hour. This is on a 30 minutes chart. Okay, so what we're kind of interested in is having a look at actually how markets have reacted this kind of week. As I said, it's been kind of a war on, war off. 30-minute chart there. Okay, um, what we can see here, okay, this would be coming into kind of a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of last week, where once again we start to get insight into kind of being war on, war off. Then invariably what we had was the Trump's comments against the markets that he was giving around 48 hours to open the Straits of Hormuz. So invariably what we saw is basically dollar holler up there, okay, on its way. And then on Monday morning, okay, he comes out and says that there's a 5 day ceasefire, and bam, that's where we can see that kind of that dollar fell away. But then, as you can see yourselves, all right, on this 30-minute chart, is that as the week's gone on, price has drifted its way there. And the thing that started to get me interested was his comments last night that basically, he's extending it from 5 days to 10 days, and actually what we saw was the drop was significant by the last few hours, but nowhere near as significant as Monday's move. And within a short period of time, within the Asian session, we've already traded back up above it. So I take that as the markets might want to believe him, all right, they might want to, but the reality is they're not. Okay, they're going to actually need to see more real, credible evidence that there is decent negotiations going on, that there is actually a proper ceasefire happening. The kind of thing that makes that interesting is that I think there's an awful lot of people who are sat on the sidelines waiting for the peace trade. That's just personal opinion. They're waiting for the peace trade. Okay, they're waiting for a real, solid, credible ceasefire. Whether that is for a week, a month, a year, a decade, that's a different question for a different day. But I think there's an awful lot of people waiting for the peace trade, okay, who are sat on their hands, sat on the sidelines, waiting for that peace trade to come on, and then looking to basically to redeploy into equity markets and all markets really off the back of that. Until that time, that's why we're sort of seeing that basically sort of drifting away up. If you were being a cynical old duffer, all right, and I usually am, you might say, well, actually, is this the pump before the dump? As I said, this is Friday morning UK time. Something amazing could be announced this afternoon. Something amazing could be announced over the weekend or before the markets reopen in Asia, okay, on Sunday evening for those of us in the UK. That would invariably sort of, rug pull this kind of dollar strength, all right? And then invariably we see like Monday with basically dollar falling if it is a positive contribution, all right, and it allows people to sort of, as I say, redeploy capital as part of that kind of peace trade. The truth of the matter is, I say this all the time, capital is a coward. All right, capital is a coward, and it will run and hide in the safest place at the first sign of trouble. And historically, that has usually been U.S. Treasuries, and that's why I start to look at these charts and start to take an interest based upon how markets have reacted this week. So, listen, let's have a little look at 2-year yields. Okay, 2-year yields. The 2-year yield on 10 US government bond debt, okay, it gets to 4%. And then basically, we get Trump's tweet, okay, Trump's tweet, which basically, as you can see, that was the kind of sort of mini ceasefire, mini peace trade. But what we can see is that prices ground its way up. And then once again, last night, price gets up to just around about that 4% on the 2-year government yield on 2-year government debt. And he comes out and has another comment. And once again, a bit like the dollar index, it drops. All right, but nowhere near as far and as deep as it had on Monday. And actually, within the Asian session, and by the start of London, we've already traded above that. Okay, we're back up above 4%, and we can see we've actually coming back beneath it there. So perhaps maybe something's going on. Okay, perhaps maybe even whilst I'm doing this, he's tweeted or said something else. Okay, but I'll be watching that 4% on the 2-year number. Okay, then if I go down to the 10-year yield, okay, which is probably the main one that people watch. It's the main one that people follow. And listen, I don't consider myself a bond expert. There are people out there who provide fantastic insight, okay, on fixed income markets, on fundamentals, far, far better than me, okay. I do well because I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. All right. I do not consider myself a bond specialist, but if you're going to be trading FX, if you're going to be trading pretty much anything, you need to keep an eye, all right, on what's going on with US Treasuries. And once again, all right, we got to this kind of what would you call it? Triple fours, all right, triple fours, 4.44%, okay, on the 10 years, and then we got an absolute collapse there. Okay, that was the Trump tweet from earlier in the week, but once again, we ground our way up here. And as we started getting towards it last night, okay, well, there we get the sort of the 10 years, 10 year, I bet he wishes it was 10-year, 10-day ceasefire, and basically price drops. But once again, market doesn't hold it, does it? Market doesn't hold it. And invariably, bang, we trade back up above that. So, Trump's probably woken up this morning and maybe literally and figuratively, he has shit the bed. Okay, when he sees the 10 years at that kind of at that level. So there you go. So let's see how those US markets open. Okay, let's see if we get any kind of insight beforehand to see what happens. Let's see if we start to see kind of a myriad of commentary. As I said, maybe he comes out with something fantastic today, Saturday, Sunday. That is the peace trade that basically, plummets the kind of the cost of borrowing, because invariably that has a huge impact not only on him, but has a huge impact upon his administration and has a huge impact upon his voters as he runs up to, what are we, 6 months away from US midterms? You can't tell me that won't be on his mind. So there we go. As I said, 4% 2-year for all the triple four, okay, 4.44, and then even like the 30-year, okay, was about 4.98. Yeah, about 4.98, just under 5%. Let's just pull that down a bit. Heading towards 5% on the 30-year, and you can see that's where we reversed and fell away, and then once again we have just worked our way up, and then last night, yep, where we had the the conversations. Once again, it did not fall its way down anywhere near as deep or as strong as earlier in the week, and already we've traded back up through that, and we are continuing higher. Okay, and we're back up towards that 4.98% area there. So as I said, maybe we'll see a more communicative, it's not the best word that you could come up with, but more communicative sort of insight into the into what's going on in the world, as I said, as he basically fights both the Iranians but also the bond market. So um, you might want to just add that. You might want to watch that. Okay, see how that particularly is playing out, and whether those levels stay consistent, or whether as we get new data, as new commentary, new insight, that changes. But at the moment, I would be watching those. Okay, they are almost like lines in the sand for both. As I said, for Trump in terms of not only his war with Iran, but actually fighting the bond market. And I'm not sure which is the least painful piece people to fight. Is it an Islamic regime on its last legs, or is it the absolute freight train that is the bond market? So picking a war with one of them is probably a bit of a tough ask, but to try and fight both, well, yeah, good luck with that. All right. Okay. So there you go. There's a little bit of insight. I'm going to do more for my own clients on the FX pairs and stuff and how it's impacting that. But that might be just something that you might want to just keep an eye on and watch and see how that plays out, not only for today's session, but over the next few days. All right. As always, I wish you the best of success in your trading endeavors, ladies and gentlemen. Have yourself a great trading session and trade well, everybody. Cheers.